And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a, not to tax evasion, but to And then finally, what we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI. And it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see because we can't search the redactions. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
Yeah, I already told you that. This is where
my answer. Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time.
Mr. Chairman. This is how this works.
Can I have my time back? Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from
Kentucky. All right, I'm reclaiming my time.
Can I give my answer?
So yes. I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman, may I give my answer on that? It's a political joke, and I need to give my answer on that.
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his next question.
It's my time.
Within 40 minutes, you asked me a question. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out
where
of
he's
over
listed as a co-conspirator.
And we invited you in.
This
guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician.
I want you to watch the video.
Mr. Chairman, please restore his time and remind the witness of the rules here.
There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he to other individuals.
Is that your position as well?
My position is any victim who comes forward, of course, we would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I am reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim time
because this is bigger than Watergate.
When I don't answer a question the way you
goes
want.
over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's
now,
where the
I want to know at what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wexner was not, because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
The gentleman's time has expired.
You didn't answer the question.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
I would,
point of
Mr.
order.
Chairman, could she answer the question?
Chairman, I was wondering,
The gentlelady's allowed, the Attorney General's allowed to respond the way she wants to respond to any member's questions, Republican, Democrat.
All right, I have unanimous consent request.
Gentleman's recognized for a UC.
All right, this is an example. I'm submitting these 302 forms that are entirely redacted, even when you go to look at
Without
them.
objection.
I'm submitting a witness statement that implicates Les Wexner.
Without objection.
I'm submitting an article from the New York Times that the DOJ released and
Without objection.
identifiable pictures of the victims. I'm submitting a letter from A.G. Bondi to Kash Patel, imploring him to quit keeping the files when you found out that they were keeping files from you, because they're still redacting files that you.
Chairman, are we going to
Without
recess for votes?
Yes, we
He had
I'm
three specific documents lined up behind him. Each one he described as proof of serious shortcomings in how the Department of Justice complied with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. First came an email originally sent by lawyers representing victims. It contained a list of names that should not be made public. Instead, the DOJ included that very email in their production. They even interacted with the file by redacting a couple of details, yet survivor names stayed visible. Those affected reportedly began receiving unwanted phone calls, turning a painful chapter into fresh distress for people who sought privacy. Massie did not soften his words, labeling it a major failure that hit the most vulnerable the hardest. That opening move set a serious tone, but he quickly moved to the next exhibit. This one carried a title referencing child sex trafficking co-conspirators. Many entries remained blacked out initially, but Massie directed attention to a prominent name that emerged after pressure: Les Wexner. The billionaire with deep ties to major retail brands appeared listed in connection with the allegations. Massie explained how the document had to be forced into clearer view, and once revealed, it raised eyebrows because Wexner shows up hundreds or even thousands of times across the wider collection of records. Officials later noted limited evidence in some memos, but the specific co-conspirator reference in the 2019 FBI file became a flashpoint. It fueled a media discussion about why certain details seemed shielded at first. Bondi responded without hesitation, explaining that any issue with the Wexner reference was fixed rapidly, within roughly 40 minutes of being flagged. Her team emphasized that his name already appeared extensively elsewhere in the files and that no broad concealment was happening. She invited further review and stressed cooperation with the process. Yet Massie reclaimed his speaking time multiple times, pressing for details on internal responsibility. He asked directly who in the organization made the calls on redactions and releases that went wrong. Could they track those decisions? The exchange grew sharper as both sides fought for control of the narrative, with the chairman stepping in to manage the flow. Beyond the individual documents, Massie highlighted problems with entire categories of records. He pointed to FD 302 forms, the detailed FBI summaries of interviews with witnesses and victims. Many arrived heavily redacted, and clicking into the public portal often revealed layer after layer of black bars. Some materials had even been removed from the website, making searches for key names or details nearly impossible. He entered additional items into the record, including witness statements that implicated certain figures and news reports on the releases. These actions underscored his argument that the DOJ still held back critical pieces, especially around decisions not to pursue prosecutions for some individuals named in testimony. The pattern, he suggested, pointed to incomplete transparency despite the law's clear requirements. The hearing's intensity peaked during the direct confrontation. Bondi defended the department's massive effort, noting millions of pages already made available under challenging conditions. She redirected attention to failures across previous administrations, asking why similar scrutiny had not been applied earlier to prior attorneys general. Massie countered that the current leadership bore responsibility for their portion of the timeline. At points, the tone turned personal, with Bondi describing Massie's approach as influenced by strong partisan feelings and using direct language toward him. Brief laughter broke out amid the tension, But the core discussion stayed locked on the documents and the need for answers. Massie submitted records showing multiple resignations linked to the file handling, keeping the focus on consequences. What keeps viewers hooked is how this single hearing reflects years of lingering questions. Speculation has long surrounded the influence of powerful networks and why certain names seem to receive different treatment. Reports from file reviews mention internal notes on prosecution choices that never appeared in the public drops, even though the Transparency Act pushed for their inclusion. Massie specifically inquired about the timeline for decisions involving Wexner and similar figures. He wanted those memos released so the public could understand the reasoning. Online conversations also discuss how some names from modeling circles received victim-level protections and redactions, potentially complicating the picture. Officials consistently maintain that evidence guided their steps, framing much of the debate as calls for balance rather than proven wrongdoing. These elements add layers that encourage people to keep watching developments. Massie brought up another troubling detail: the release of identifiable images and photos that should have stayed protected. He referenced communications showing awareness of these problems inside the department. Bondi reiterated that any victim coming forward with new credible information would receive full attention, directing people to official channels. Still, the congressman returned to the broader scope, describing the situation as larger than single scandals and spanning multiple eras of leadership. He argued the current handling formed part of a longer chain of decisions that left important gaps. The hearing paused for votes, but the points raised refused to fade from public conversation. Clips spread quickly, sparking analysis from both supporters and critics. Diving deeper into the background of these files reveals a complex history. Wexner had interacted with investigators years earlier, offering background information and facing subpoenas. His representative stated that he received assurances of not being a target at the time. FBI documents from 2019 described him in secondary terms with notes on limited connections shown by available evidence. Yet the unredacting process, after congressional pressure, created new waves of interest. Supporters of fuller disclosure argue it would help resolve doubts, while privacy advocates stress the need to avoid harming those already impacted. The balance between openness and protection sits at the heart of ongoing debates, with many wondering if additional materials could shift understandings of key relationships from that period. Public reactions poured in from every direction after the hearing. Many praised Massie for persistent questioning and for his role in crafting the original legislation alongside Representative Ro Khanna that compelled the releases. Others viewed Bondi's replies as standard defensive tactics that avoided owning current shortcomings. The human impact remained front and center, as survivors who sought no publicity faced renewed exposure through the mistakes. Groups focused on victims support renewed calls for stronger safeguards in any future document productions. At the same time, curiosity grew about sealed portions still out of reach, with commentators speculating on potential revelations if momentum continues. Independent reviews of released materials highlight both progress and persistent frustrations with the pace and completeness. This episode fits into a larger narrative that has captured attention for years. The Epstein files represent extensive investigations, court records, interviews, and difficult decisions that touch on profound issues of justice and influence. The hearing brought those threads into sharp focus through live confrontation. Massie made his position clear. The DOJ needed to explain its choices and improve execution. Bondi countered by highlighting volume, corrections made, and context from prior years. Their exchange, filled with interruptions and reclaimed time, showed how charged these topics remain. For audiences following the story, it served as a reminder that transparency often comes through persistent effort rather than automatic delivery. The laughter and sharp remarks only amplified the sense that something significant was unfolding in real time. Beyond the immediate clash, the hearing raised practical questions about process. How do large agencies manage millions of pages while protecting identities? What internal checks exist for redactions? Massie pressed for accountability measures that could identify individuals responsible for errors like the victim name releases. Bondi pointed to rapid responses once issues surfaced, arguing the system worked when flagged. Yet the congressman maintained that proactive compliance should be the standard, not reactive fixes. These back-and-forth points left viewers debating the effectiveness of oversight in high-stakes matters involving sensitive histories. Many online discussions turned to what additional steps Congress might take to ensure better results moving forward. The role of figures like Wexner adds another dimension that keeps interest high. His long-standing presence in business and philanthropy made the file references particularly notable. While some records show extensive scrutiny, others emphasize cooperation and lack of further pursuit. This contrast sparked conversation about how evidence thresholds influence outcomes in complex cases. Neutral observers note that public files contain both incriminating suggestions and clarifying context, requiring careful reading. The hearing did not resolve these tensions, but amplified them, encouraging more people to examine the materials themselves. As new analyses